search for public comment. Of course, you can also contact me anytime for any sort of public comment. We are having this session tonight. So just some general ground rules. One, we want to keep things civil, of course. This is an opportunity for all citizens of Lewiston to have their voice heard. We will be taking, it's more in the fashion of public comment, like you see at council meetings. We're not going to be engaging in debate back and forth. We'll obviously answer some procedural questions or some basic things, but we're not going to be getting into debate back and forth, city staff versus public at this time. This is an opportunity for everyone here to sound off and tell us what you'd like to see in the next police chief, and also maybe tell us about some of your particular concerns surrounding public safety in Lewiston right now and your experiences. This is being recorded, as our council meetings are, so it's going to be available to see on YouTube. It's also on the cable channel. And city staff, we're also taking notes of everything that's said. I'll be taking some notes. We have Deputy Administrator O'Malley here. We have Special Assistant Joe Grockmall here. We have Communications Director Angie Morez here. So city staff is here. We are paying attention. We're taking notes. So please know that your voice is being heard. So I'll just start off real quick. You know, this is a really important position for the city. You know, this is a position we need to definitely get right. You know, public safety is, for me, and I think this council, our number one priority. It's been established as our number one priority. I can tell you in my first few months here, I've heard concerns about public safety almost nonstop, from residents in the downtown, from residents outside of downtown, from business owners, from people that are housed and unhoused. I've heard public safety concerns across the board. So this is a very important position for us. It's a very important pick for us. I think we need someone who is certainly of the mind that public engagement is really important, that getting out into the community and building relationships is very important. I think we also need someone to tackle one of our biggest challenges, which is recruitment. We're down between 12 and 15 officers with some of the medical leave happening right now. That's a big number for our department. So I think we need a leader who's going to inspire that next generation to really want to come here and do good work for the city of Lewiston, be part of this community, be part of our police department. So I think someone that has that ability to inspire a new generation of officers and recruits to come in here is really important. And lastly, you know, I think I'm also, yes. Yes, sir. Okay. I think we're also looking for someone that shares a real optimism about the city. I can tell you after just a few months here, I'm more optimistic about this city and its future than I was coming in. We have a lot of great people here. We have a lot of great assets here. We have a lot to be proud of here. I don't think we talk about it enough, but we have a lot of good things happening here. And so I'd like to see someone that also shares that great sense of optimism for this city, not just for our police department, but for the city overall. So that's basically what I'm looking for, just from a high level. There'll obviously be a lot of more particular things going down. So we're having this session. The advisory committee that I've talked about is currently being constituted. Hopefully we'll have that filled out within the next week or so. This position is being advertised through the end of next week, September 4th. I imagine we'll be doing interviews probably sometime in mid to late September, likely, and hopefully, if all goes according to plan, we could identify someone and have a pick named by early October. That's generally the plan. Obviously, there may be some flexibility there depending on dates and what's going on. So that's it from me, I think. We're going to obviously invite public comment now. I don't think we have too many people here that we need to time things, but you know, please take a few minutes, share your thoughts. Please don't take 15 or 20 minutes. Be considerate of your neighbors and fellow citizens here, but we don't need to use the 3-minute timer, I think. So we'll ask you to come up to the podium. Angie, we do also have another mic if you would prefer to sit at your seat instead of going to the podium, depending on your preference. But we're here till 6:30, so feel free to take some time. I'll be available if you'd rather share some more, you know, private concerns. I'm available anytime. If you'd like to get in touch with me and sit down and have a conversation, happy to do that too. So again, this is being recorded. We're taking notes, and we'd love to hear from you, the citizens of Lewiston, about what you'd like to see in your next police chief, and also just share some of your concerns about maybe public safety in Lewiston right now. This monitor,
Yes.
This monitor, is that working?
Yeah, we can get it turned off.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So who would like to start? Dottie, please.
My name is Dottie Parham-Whittier, and I worked in administration for the City of Lewiston for 42 years, retiring last summer. During my tenure, I witnessed the leadership of many police chiefs. The police department also holds a special place in my heart as my dad, former Lieutenant Roy Parham, retired from LPD in 1980. In regard to the selection of a new police chief, I appreciate this opportunity to share. I hope that the new chief has a passion for community policing. Building and sustaining lines of communication is incredibly important for mutual trust and respect. Community policing also goes a long way in encouraging individuals to say something when they see something. LPD has already done many things through community policing, and may the new chief champion such proactive outreach. I also hope that during the selection process, and perhaps this has already been lined up, that LPD administrative and law enforcement personnel have an opportunity to share their opinions on the characteristics for a new police chief. Day in and day out, they live all facets of what the department does, and their voices are vital in this decision. Lastly, the youth of our community are our future. Their insight is extremely important, as sometimes they have viewpoints that adults may not think about. I would encourage the city administrator or selection committee members to hold some gatherings at local schools so that middle school, high school, and college students can share their opinions. Hiring a new police chief is a huge decision for Lewiston's future, and I appreciate the thoughtful efforts in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Scott. I live in Ward 1. I am a former school committee member, former city councilor, and like Dottie, my dad too was a Lewiston police officer. It was his first career before he went off to Vietnam. I have been a Lewiston resident my whole life, growing up in downtown Lewiston, and the city of Lewiston and the growth of this city has been my passion forever. I really think it's important, and I just want to thank you first for allowing us to have this opportunity to come voice our opinion and speak to you. I really think it's important, as Dottie stated, I came along with the same thought process that community policing and being a part of our community is integral to our police department. We need a police officer, a chief that's going to be out there talking to the folks of our community. Be out there talking to the different demographics of our community. We have phenomenal police officers already on the ground doing the work of speaking to different community members. But I believe it's extremely important that the chief of police is taking the lead on that position and making sure that he understands all the demographics of our community. When the opportunity arises to speak, whether it's at a church with a homeless group or at the mosque, our chief of police should be stepping forward and saying, that's exactly what I'm going to do. They need to understand the crime and what's happening in our community, and they need to not be afraid when the criticism may come from community members who are concerned and want to hear from our chief of police. And I'll be very blunt about this. When community members bring up the fact that they are extremely concerned about the number of shootings, I want to see a chief of police that's going to come out and speak to us. I don't want to hear the details of a crime or anything like that, but I want to know that something is being done. And I think that's important. People want to hear those things. I also think it's extremely important that when you put a plan forward and you say you have a plan in place, that you follow through the plan in place. And those are things that I think that a leader does. As a former city councilor, I would also like to point out that I think that the chief of police is a department head, like any other department head in our community. And that is also important, that the department head is doing the job and being prepared to come before the council, not only to answer questions, but ask for things. When a council is sitting there saying, what can we do to help you to change what's happening? What do you need? We need a chief of police that's going to say, this is what I need. How can we get this? I encourage others to reach out to you. Not only in this forum, I hope that you're offering the opportunity for folks to email. I know that this is being recorded, but I think that, we have a small group of folks here in this room, which I really appreciate, but I think it's important that we hear from more folks in our community on what they want to see. Thank you again.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate again, if you'd like to speak with me individually, by phone, or if you want to send me an email, I'm available. Please do from now up until this search is concluded. So that's an option at any time. So just want to say that again. All right, others?
Well, this will be the third time that I speak in front of the council, but it's only you here tonight. You weren't here the other 2 times. But on March 24, I was arrested by Lewiston Police based on a warrant coming out of Lincoln County that was based on lies, that I was stalking my grandchildren. Now, on March 30, Officer Cody called me and said that, well, I saw that the police were at my door, 5 of them. And he asked me to open the door so that we could talk. I said, no, you're talking to me right now on the phone. And I told him that the warrant for my arrest was based on false claims that I visited the school. I didn't visit the school. I called the school in Waldoboro to try to talk to the counselor about my son's ex-girlfriend keeping my grandchildren away from us for 4 years now. That's what got me arrested. That is absolutely crazy. Lewiston police officers acted on that warrant and kicked in my door, totally destroying it, leaving me helpless if there was any bad people that would come and try to enter my home. I'm more afraid of the police than I am of anybody else right now. I have been arrested 5 times in 1 year, all based on false claims. 2 of the arrests were in Aroostook County. I was supposedly disorderly for having an argument with my husband. I was arrested, though the man who threatened me and said, "You'll shut up quick if a gun is pointed to your head," got no warning. I took my text message to Lewiston police officers, left the message with them, and I didn't get a reply after a few weeks. So I called and I asked for an officer to come to my home. And he did. And I recorded our conversation. And I said, "Is this a threat when someone says you'll shut up quick if a gun is pointed in your face?" The officer, I don't remember who it was, said, "Well, with all due respect, ma'am, you went back to Aroostook County after he sent that threat to you. And by the way, he didn't say he would point a gun in your face. He just said if a gun is pointed in your face." Lots of people have told me that is a threat. It was, okay? I'm still facing prosecution by Lincoln County. I mean, my landlord threatened to evict me because police had come to my house too many times. He took me to court. He lost the first hearing because he didn't do the process right. I tried to get help from Pine Tree Legal, from Legal Aid for the Elderly. I do have a claim because you're not supposed to be able to kick someone out of a home if they're a victim of domestic violence. One time, when my son kicked my door in, and I called police, no, I didn't call police, my neighbor did. My son had thrown my phone. And so they arrived and they said, "Well, where is he? It's the second time we get here and he's gone." I said, "Well, obviously he knows that he's in trouble. He left." And then I said, "Well, I didn't even call you this time." So it was my neighbor that called. And by then I had found my phone and I started to record the conversation. And one officer said to me, "Maybe you kicked in your door." Other officers in the past, when I've called for help, have accused me of being intoxicated because I was upset. Told me, "Sober up, go back to bed." Okay? I have not posted all this stuff on the internet, but I have been posting some of it. And on July 15, I came here, and also on April 1, to report what had happened to me on March 30. That is, police kicking in my door at 11:30 at night, putting me on the street after midnight without a phone, which they confiscated as supposed evidence of my stalking activity. When they breached the door, I had my phone in my hand, but guess what? That's not what I recorded the audio on. I recorded it on my iPad. They confiscated my phone. That's a serious thing to do.
Can I ask you a
have-
question?
Well, before you do question
Okay,
me, I
sure.
want to say that on July 15, I came here and I told the council, and I handed Chief St. Pierre my complaint. He was sitting right back there in plain clothes. And I also said, by the way, there's a warrant for my arrest, because I did not appear for arraignment on June 12th because I had an obstruction in my eye, and I was 4.5 hours away from the Lincoln County Courthouse. He did nothing to address that complaint and sent officers, apparently he must have been the one, he's the chief, to my home to arrest me the next day. I turned myself in this time. Okay, the first time I was arrested for failure to appear to pick a jury, which would have cost taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. The first time I didn't appear, that was in Aroostook County. I was jailed over Memorial Day weekend for 4 nights and 4 days. And a wrongful detention, I've read, is worth $1,000 an hour. That would make me rich. I'd have $100,000 if I could find a civil rights attorney and sue. Okay, go ahead, ask your question.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it. No, we appreciate hearing about the experiences. My question is to you is, we're hiring a new police chief here. What would you like to see in a new
I would like to
police
see an investigation into the warrant in Lincoln County that got me arrested. I told the officers
Are there
in
particular
Lewiston-
qualities in a sort of person that you would like to see?
Like in the book Aragon, you don't choose a leader for his knowledge, you choose him for his heart.
Okay.
Chief of police better have heart and better be able to listen to the police to the people when they say, hey, I've been wronged, please investigate. I want to know, are you going to demand an investigation into this incident, these incidences, and that warrants, when someone tells you this is a bad warrant, the police can't just say like they told me, oh, I don't know what the warrant's for, call Waldoboro Police. No, they need to investigate it themselves. I'm not Robert Card. They didn't even do that to Robert Card. They kicked in my door, demolished it. Now I go to protests, and I hold up my broken door with the sign on it saying, hands off me and my door, Lewiston Police.
All right, no, we appreciate the experiences,
I will-
and so I appreciate your comments about what you'd like to see in a new chief, someone that has heart, right? So we
And I
appreciate
will
that.
be hoping that you follow up with the kicking in of my door on March 30th, releasing me into the streets of Auburn after midnight, 2 miles from my home, in my PJs, without a phone to call for help. That is public safety concern, that that Lewiston police officers put me in danger.
Appreciate the comments.
Not
Thank
to
you so
mention
much.
on March 24, when they kicked me out of the police station after arresting me, it was a snowstorm, and I also didn't have my phone with me because I was afraid they were going to confiscate it.
All right, we thank you, appreciate it. All right. And also, if you could just introduce yourself and say if you live in Lewiston or not, that'll be helpful too. Thank you. No, I didn't say that, so thank you.
My name's Melissa Dunn. I'm a community organizer. I live in Lewiston's downtown. I think what's important for me, knowing what we can have in a police chief or the police department, essentially, is to first come to an understanding around the definition of crime. If you go to the Lewiston courts, most of them are filled up with petty crime, ordinance violations, $100 fines of people who are unhoused and on substances and in the struggle. And what we actually experience in the downtown is domestic violence, assault and battery, being stalked and cyber stalked. But we're not able to get supports that we need to get pathways to due processes through the courts for protections. They refuse to do cease and desist and things like that. So it'd be really great if we had a chief that was educated around domestic violence and stalker profiles, especially. because it kind of signals like the indicators of violence to people. And what the police say and what the courts are awarding protection from abuse orders and things like that on, and extensions and total prohibition on weapons, is things that are defined under the law. So there's a disconnect there. And I guess what is also important to me is that poor people are held with care, especially unhoused people who use substances, people who might have mental health diagnosis or in crisis, or even a physical disability. Could lead them to police engagement or being racially profiled or anything like that, which has happened on our streets before. One thing I think that's important for a police chief is actually knowing and understanding our history of racialized targeting of racially segregated communities that are in racially segregated housing. Operation Hotspot began in 2012. In its first run, it yielded 3 pounds of substances, I believe. And those were based on, it was a response to isolated incidents of violence, I think probably involving domestic violence as well, if I'm not mistaken, but domestic violence wasn't addressed. Now, since then, we've had increase of over-policing, cameras, surveillance, other initiatives like Neighborhood First, and things that allow and invite police into our communities under the guise of like building relationships or public safety. But what it has resulted in is like community feeling terrorized or being racially profiled or civil and human rights violated. And with Trump's executive order calling to criminalize people in these vulnerable circumstances where housing is literally monopolized, even when you get in housing and pay deposit, you're lucky to stay there if the landlord sells it and somebody new buys it and doesn't up the sale and kick people out. And so to know the dynamics here about housing and people's struggle is really important, because over-policing, stacked charges is something that poor people often face. Classism is the idea of like, if we're punitive towards poor people, that's going to teach them a lesson, and it's actually opposite. It burdens them and keeps them from a place of actually being able to thrive. I am fearful if a police chief that does get into this position is doing things around building relationship and public safety and doesn't understand the challenges that have existed, that we might be running into things where police are maintaining the existing culture that already exists, right? And so if that culture already exists, it's the institution. It's no different if at a hospital, at an assisted living facility. If there's abuse and grievances and civil and human rights violations in those institutions already existing, that means that's a problem. And it could be an indicator that there's something more. Typically, like a person, an elder in a senior housing, will have their medicine, their housing, and their food threatened because that's what the power holder has control over. But with police, it's a little bit different. But they have utilized code enforcement in the schools to carry out further punitive measures. I want to stress again around the definition of crime. Lewiston's plight, especially in downtown, is domestic violence. It's rooted in it, the domestic history. It's from domestic violence. But on the surface, people see people doing drugs or like they're in the street, or maybe have passed by a syringe in the street, you know? And so that conversation is like really going to the wayside. That again is an entity that, for a domestic violence org, that has money that's monopolized, right? It's not getting fully funded back into community. And these people in power kind of dictate where money is allocated, how survivors going to get support and things like that. And so I'm just really concerned while we're ignoring these critical pieces around domestic violence especially, we could actually be preventing the Robert Cards from carrying out mass violence. We could actually be preventing an abuser from threats and attempts with his AR-15 to his mother and his partner. We could actually prevent violence from making it to the streets if people have that awareness and take particular care and interest in it. It's so much deeper than what the surface level is, and we need a chief that will recognize that and challenge that. We also, as a city, need to be transparent to the chief. We have an obligation to say, hey, this is the existing culture. These are the issues, because we're going to be asking this chief to fill in some shoes, and they might face some pushback. We're asking basically sometimes violent people to accountability or to a process or a different culture that has already existed. And like domestic violence, if you don't disrupt that culture, it's going to get worse or escalate in its violence, just like a police department can and has and will. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
There's no money in it anyway.
Others?
Hi, my name's Katie Krantz, and I live in Ward 7. I'm also an educator at the Lewiston Public Schools for the last 20 years. What I personally feel that we should be looking for in our chief is somebody that's going to really come hit the ground, connect with our community. Not only the adults, but our youth. Our youth is a big part of our community. They're in our schools, they're on our streets. They're not going anywhere. Whether people want them off the streets, they're here to stay. Our chief also needs to get our police department to understand that. They do a great job of it, but we need to see the chief being up here and connecting with the fellow staff members of the police department and saying, we need to be out on the streets more. We need to connect with the youth more. Maybe at that point, these children out on the street are going to then say, hey, I can go up to this officer, I can connect with this officer, I can be friendly with this officer. Seeing our SROs in the school doing an incredible job connecting with these kids day in, day out, that's incredible. Knowing that these kids are able to go to these officers if there's something that they need to talk to them about, I'd love to see the chief, whether it's a male or a female, whomever it is, have that relationship with these kids. Have more events open for the public. Being able to come together with the members of the community. Start having it so that people can feel comfortable to come forward and say, this is what's going on in our housing complex. This is what's going on. I've heard that this is gonna happen. It's not snitching, but it's feeling as though you have someplace safe that you can go to. Hopefully this committee hasn't been formed yet. I would hope that people are going to be given a chance to be able to be part of this committee and be able to sit down and really look at this chief, whomever they be, that they're given a chance. We need to, like I said, get someone that's going to get their boots on, hit the ground, and start running. As you did with open eyes, giving Lewiston a chance, because I feel everybody looks at Lewiston as their dirty Lou. That's not us. Give us a chance. Like I said, I've worked in the public schools for 20 years. My heart bleeds blue. It's going to stay that way. The kids are my kids. I look at it that way. They'll always be that way. No matter whether they've done something wrong, it's not that way to me. And we need to bring someone into the city of Lewiston that's going to be here to stay. Whether we get angry with them, get a thicker skin. Let it roll off your back. Find out what you can do to change that and go about it a different way the next time. talk to the community members, talk to the people that live here. That's all I can do, is just ask us, give us a chance, and see what we can do to help you. Have an open door policy. Don't shut the door on us. Be open, honest. Tell us what's going on. If there's something that's going on in the community, don't come to us 2-3 days later and tell us what's going on. Be open, be honest, be upfront. That's all we ask for in the city of Lewiston. Don't lie to us. Don't blow smoke where it shouldn't be smoke blown, and tell us the truth.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, who's next? We also have a mic that can go out to the audience if you don't want to come up to the podium. We have another one here, Angie, if you want to use this. You want to use this one? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we got two here. And did you want to say something? Are you good? Okay. Yeah? Okay. Here you go, Elizabeth. You don't have to. This is that one.
I do have one.
I don't think that one's working.
I do have one concern that hasn't been raised yet. So far, I agree with everybody, and that is about the current atmosphere with ICE interference with police practice. So I just want to make sure that whoever is on that committee asks the candidates about their philosophy about such things.
Okay.
I need to get my steps in. Back here? Want to say something? Yes.
Sure. My name is Emma Cipriani. I live in Lewiston. I moved here only about a year ago, but in the year I've spent here, it's been really eye-opening to see like all the warmth and the heart that exists here, but all of the troubles as well. And you know, it's scary to hear, especially my job, like young people who are afraid about being shot at, and people who have been shot at, even for being in the wrong place in the wrong time. You know, 2 kids just driving in a car and getting shot at. I don't know if it was the house behind them or what, but it was just for no reason. So anyway, I don't need to tell everyone here that. But I just hope that maybe the next chief of police would be someone who is really aware of the problems in our community, and maybe like someone who is either from or grown up or like has knowledge about this community. I don't know what the sort of hiring process is going to be in terms of the committee, in terms of looking where people are looking outside the state or even inside of it. But I think if you can get someone who really has knowledge about this community, that is like a huge benefit, and that will be a huge benefit. Because I can say, like, even living for a year in Lewiston, there's so much that I am trying to learn, and there's so much to catch up on. So I think, yeah, I hope that there might be some good candidates that we have to work with who are maybe from Lewiston or who really have knowledge from our community. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you. And just to clarify for a moment, we are advertising this position both externally and internally at the same time. So this is a national search. It is posted on a number of different sources, including the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and others. So this is being seen far and wide. We're also requiring that the new chief, and it's been a practice of previous chiefs, they live and are residents in the city of Lewiston. So the person, if they don't live in Lewiston yet, they will have 1 year to establish residency in Lewiston, which is actually longer than I had to establish residency here. So, but so they will be Lewiston residents, and we are casting a pretty wide net, as we say, with this search. Not just doing it internally, but also putting it out externally and nationally on many different sites and job boards, and specifically, professional police organizations. So it's being seen across the country. All right, who's next?
Hi, my name is Asha Mohammed. I grew up in Lewiston since I was 10 years old, so I've lived here for 20 years. I went to school here, everything, and my main focus would be focusing on the youth instead of criminalizing them. On top of that, making us colored folks or immigrants, making us feel like we're criminals. From the start, I get pulled over, I feel uncomfortable automatically, even talking to a police, my voice shakes and everything. So just feeling that safety in our community. It's like I'm saying, I've had horrible encounters with police officers where I've been traumatized, and as soon as I see police, I automatically shake, cry. So that's why it was hard even having a voice right here, because I didn't know how my emotions will take place, but obviously it means a lot if this is how I'm reacting. But I've been pulled over. I'm not a bad person. I've had a clean history, but yet every time I get pulled over, I just feel like I'm on attack mode. Like, I just feel like a criminal automatically. So I just feel like there should be different approaches so we feel more safer. More focus on youths instead of saying they're bad people or their parents are bad people. Helping us parents, because I know my mom is a mother of 5. We're all good kids, except there was one brother of mine who he just needed someone to be there for him instead of being expelled at school. But that's because he was always getting targeted, just because his accent growing up in down south. So when he came here, I watched teachers attack him while we're standing in the same vicinity, like getting dismissed together, but they're targeting him because of how he looks and how he talks, but we're getting dismissed for a dentist appointment. So I feel like that destroyed my brother itself, and I wish how he grew up changed, but because he always felt attacked, it shaped him as a person. And I forever hate that he went in a wrong path in life, but I'll always pray for him. But I just feel like we should focus more and more on the youth instead of criminalizing them and shaming parents.
Could I just ask a quick follow-up question? Are there ways that you think we could reach out to the youth better? Do you think there are ways we could reach out to youth better in the community to engage them? Do you have any ideas? Or you can follow up with me privately later if you prefer, but I'm just interested in hearing your ideas.
Right now, I actually moved out of Lewiston once I seen that there was, once I graduated college, I decided to move because I was like, if I always feel like a bad person in a place where I feel good, I should leave. So I left for 4 years to Minnesota, and I felt a good sense of community there because the police were more focused on the youth. They had more events for the youth. They had more events for mothers. So they reached out to the community. They was always there for the community, and that was a sense of change that I want to see for my own community. I never wanted to come back, but obviously I grew up here for 20 years. I don't want to run away. I want to be something in this community, and I just want a safe path for us. And I just think that just doing more and feeling that safe space, like we're listening, and we're not here to target sons, daughters, and maybe help you guys, even programs for parents, and just like, because this is all new for us immigrants, parents. when it comes to the change of society and everything. And a lot of parents are new to the changes in society, so they feel helpless themselves. I watched my mother wanting services for my brother, but none of us knew how to help him because we didn't know how to approach recovery services. We didn't know how to help him with anger management. So just offering more services and making it more family welcomed.
Great. Thank you for being here.
Is that on? I can't do it.
Hi, my name is Julia Harper. I I work on Pine Street, and I have lived for, I don't currently, but I lived for over a decade in the Tree Street neighborhood. And I also want to thank you for holding this meeting. I think it's really, really important for this city leadership position. And I want to echo a lot of the sentiment that's been made tonight around community policing. And I just want to kind of emphasize that we'd really love to see a police chief that understands that the police are not solely responsible for community safety, that it requires everyone, partnerships with everyone in the community, which requires trust and relationship building. And I think in particular, something that maybe hasn't been said exactly is that, you know, I think all of Lewiston is hurting right now with particularly the gun violence that's been happening, and there's other issues. And I just want to kind of emphasize that that no one is hurting more than the neighborhoods where this is happening. And so I think it's really imperative that we have a chief who understands, that can come up with also create a plan to implement it, about how to engage the people in those neighborhoods that are suffering the most, and to just know that the folks in those neighborhoods are the ones that need to be listened to, engaged, and supported in creating the solutions to safety. Because once, you know, the safety of the rest of the community is going to follow from that. So I think that is primarily what I wanted to say. Also, you know, to Elizabeth's point, there's many immigrant members of our community who currently feel unsafe calling emergency services for fear that they will be detained or deported, and that includes accidents, emergencies, abuse that they witness, and that makes us all less safe. And so I think it's also really important that the new chief has a plan around and policies to kind of build a culture of like trust in staff. I think speaking to what someone said around like Black and brown immigrant communities in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, looking for our next person. All right. We'll give maybe others a chance, but I also have a couple other questions. Maybe I'll throw out there if we're kind of wrapping up on the general public comment. I've been just struck with how many people have told me in the last few months, regardless of where they live, that they're just in general concerned about their safety going around Lewiston, whether it's walking in our downtown or driving places. And so I'd be curious to hear from you. Do you feel safe coming to downtown and walking around? Do you feel safe in your neighborhoods? What is your general feeling or level of feeling of safe in our community? If you have any just general statements on that, I'd be curious to hear them. I think, I guess I've experienced a little bit. I think everyone has some different comfort levels and thresholds with more urban environments, you know, for sure. So while some people do feel safe in our downtown, many have expressed to me that they, you know, do not. So if you just have any general feelings in that regard, I'd be curious to hear those. So people who have spoken or have not spoken, I'd be interested to hear those thoughts.
Hi, my name's Sadie. I also have only been in Lewiston for about a year. When I first moved here, what struck me was how beautiful the city actually is. I live in the tree streets, and what I fell in love with was hearing different languages, different types of music, seeing people in different cultural wear, especially the kids all playing together. And there's a lot to really love here. But I'm scared after dark. I don't go to a certain corner on my street after dark or after dinner time. I'm a very small woman. That's part of my reality. I have lived in other cities and have had to feel that way in certain areas, not so close to my home.
Thank you. Melissa?
I'm a survivor of violence by over 40 white men throughout the entirety of my life. I feel completely safe when I walk down through the downtown in the middle of the night if I had to go to CMC emergency or anything like that. I think what I'm most concerned about is what I'm witness to when there's police interactions with the community. Like one time, a boy that was about 16 was being held down by two of his brothers and beat by them both and by the mother with wooden chair sticks, and the police detained the kid that was being abused. And right off the bat, if a law enforcement was aware about unhealthy family dynamics or domestic violence, he would have picked up the golden child, was fixing the trash cans in line so they'd be all in order and making it how it was before the family got violent on this kid. No supports and resources were offered to the kid to be connected to New Beginnings, which I think was a grave error. We've had homeless youth walking the street. Where they were staying was too unsafe, and it was past curfew. And she was single and she was alone, and there was a law enforcement that had engagement with her. He would not let her go. He brought her to the ground. She had scabs and bruises up and down her face and body. When we went to go check with the police on reports, there was no record found. These are the kinds of things that we're dealing with in the downtown. Most of the folks in the downtown do things like break up street fights. If there's kids picking on another kid, a group of people fighting, a white man saying racialized slurs to a black man, we're there to disrupt and interrupt and do kind of mediation or whatever in the street. And so I'd like to see more like community efforts on that aspect to be involved as like bystander intervention or things like that, especially since we have seen the signs of the rise of extremism. Another thing that I had reported recently that was there was another Nazi sticker on a trash can in the park, and that wasn't the first one. We've had actual group NSC-131 rally October 2nd, I believe, of 2022. That was a year prior to Robert Card, and then Robert Card happened. So I think, when we're thinking about safety, our greatest threat is the raging, radicalized, violent white man. I mean, hands down. And Robert Card was a signifier of that. But yet, no prevention and awareness efforts went into around domestic violence, which he had a history. He had a history. And those were things, even whether he was in Lewiston or not, that could have been done here as prevention and awareness efforts. But yeah, I feel safe in the downtown. I keep my doors unlocked. I sleep with my windows open. I feel safe.
Thank you.
Katie Krantz, Ward 7. I have absolutely no fear. I'm working games out at the high school in the evenings. I'm with my youth. I've worked with my homeless youth. I've done outreach. I've spent time out on the streets with outreach programs and stuff. I have no fear. I would personally love to see, I think you said it was 12 to 15 positions that were down. I would love to see those get filled, as I said, so that we can get more officers connecting with our community members. But other than that, I would love to see the gun violence numbers drop. I'd love to see more people being out in our community more to enjoy what we have to offer here. Until we can get the gun violence problem brought under control, I think you're gonna have community members that are going to be living in fear. That's, any problem is going to happen, and they're going to live in fear. And until we can get a situation brought under control and stuff, they're going to say they live in fear. And until we can get a chief in there that's gonna say, yes, we're gonna do A, B, and C, this is what we're going to do, this is how I'm going to go about it, that's what they need to see. Someone that's gonna take, pardon the expression, the bull by the horns and say, here's what I'm here to do. And that's what we need to do, is bring someone in that's going to do that. And that's what they need to see, is it in writing that this is what I'm going to do, here's what I want done. And let's get leadership in there to do that, so people can start sleeping with their windows open, their doors unlocked, out on the streets walking around and feeling more comfortable about it.
Great. Thank you. Linda.
Linda Scott, Ward 1. I grew up, I delivered newspapers on Bartlett Street in the morning when I was 10 years old. I've never felt unsafe in my city, to be quite honest with you. As a school committee member and as a city councilor, I walked all the time from past Bates College, down College Street to the City Hall or the Dingley Building for my meetings. I feel like I could walk anywhere. I also work very closely with our unhoused community in Lewiston. So building those relationships with folks makes you feel safer. Honestly, it does for me. But I will say that there are many community members, and I think it's disheartening to see comments on social media where folks are afraid to go to the balloon festival because of gunshots. People are afraid of that. My mother, who lives on Jefferson Street, who is afraid of those things. And I think we have to think about those pieces, the folks that have lived here their whole lives and are in retirement and are terrified that, a stray bullet's going to happen and somebody's going to get hit. Those thoughts are going through the minds of folks in our community, and we need to recognize that. People are afraid of that. And we need a new chief that's going to be willing to address those fears that are in our community. They do exist. I may not feel fear because I'm very comfortable out in my community, but there are a lot of people that do feel fear. And even if they're not in this room right now, it is a reality and it needs to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you.
My biggest fear is that there'll be no accountability of abuse by police officers. And I'm hoping that you will look into the warrants that led to my arrest on March 24 and on March 30. I've been blogging for many years about injustices, a lot of them in the judicial system. It is a judge in Lincoln County who issued the warrants, the 3 warrants for my arrest that were acted on by Lewiston police officers. But I notified the police officers that they were acting on a warrant that was based on a lie. There was no rush to kick in my door and arrest me and then release me on PR. Lots of people are being released also without any cash bail. I agree with that, because nobody should be imprisoned based on their ability not to pay. Bail, cash bail, is a pay not to stay fee. All people should be evaluated based on the likelihood that they'll commit another crime, based on the likelihood that they actually committed the crime, based on their past history. And I'm not talking about arrests, I'm talking about convictions. My reputation, I have a cleaning business, but if I had a regular job, I could not afford to spend time telling about the things that are happening to me. I would have missed work. No, I have no news media has reported my story. One of them offered to report my story if I paid him $1,150. Is that not illegal for a news organization to do that? I will have a conversation with you if you would like me to, and I'll tell you who that news organization is. But they're not the only ones that won't report my story. And I'd like to know why the minutes of that July 15 meeting have not been posted yet, have not been accepted by the council. I called city clerk today, and she said that they will be printed or accepted at the next meeting, which is September 2. By the time they're posted, it will have made 2 months since I stood before the council and told them that I want accountability of your law enforcement officers who arrested me, breached my door.
So I
On
have
March
a
30.
quick comment and a question. The
Yes.
first comment is the reason for the delay in those minutes is because that meeting was 8.5 hours, and we're just having to
I'm
take
glad
some
I
time.
left after I did because I was
We're just
afraid to
taking
be
some time to
arrested.
get those minutes done. So really, it's just the length of that particular meeting for the delay, but they will be up and they will be accepted.
Okay.
So the second question was just talking about safety in the downtown, in your neighborhood. Do you feel safe walking around downtown? Do you feel safe
Well, I
near
don't
where you
usually,
live?
I don't usually go walking in downtown after dark, like many people say, but I live half a mile away from downtown Lewiston. I feel pretty safe in the building I'm at. You know, I'm on the second floor. I mean, I have a door and a window. Nobody can get in unless they go through that, and if they have a battering ram. But I hear gunshots quite often. It doesn't worry me for my safety, but for other people's safety, yes. But I want to know, are you going to look into the warrants that resulted in my arrests? And
Yeah, I'm not familiar with your case, but we're happy to catch up on that later, maybe. I don't know anything
or
about
at
it
least
right now.
make sure you don't forget my name, Paula Michaud. The arrests were March 24 and March 30.
Yeah. All right. Thank
And
you.
then again, July 17, when I turned myself in because I couldn't go to my arraignment because I had an obstruction in my eye and would have had to drive 4.5 hours because I was in Aroostook County. By the way, Lincoln County has scheduled me for arraignment on September 2, then rescheduled it to Millinocket on September 3, rescheduled it back to Lincoln Court on September 11, and the latest I've heard is that the Lincoln County Court is closed until October 3, so I really don't know the status of the hearing for my arraignment right now. I will call them tomorrow if I remember. But like I said, following up on this and trying to get people held accountable is a full-time job. I guarantee you there's many working people in Lewiston who've experienced similar things, but just don't have either the courage or the time to come and tell you about it.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Anyone else want to talk about safety in the downtown or in their neighborhoods? Absolutely.
Just real quick, with accountability and some things that were said earlier about disconnects, I had to deal with a protection from harassment order, and it took over half a year to have that finally see its day in court. And from all of the times I had to go to court, it was because they were not serving the defendant. And from what I could see going on, there were a lot of people who had to wait years. They just kept showing up for that date, and then the judge would tell them that the defendant has not been served, give them a new date. So there's an obvious disconnect in service of those things, at least. I don't know how that's affecting other things, but I know as far as prevention goes with harassment and protection orders, that's something that should be happening on a much quicker basis to have those issues resolved.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else on this topic? Okay. How about, something that's important to me, and I've heard a few comments here tonight also, just community engagement and ways for the police department to engage with the community, to engage with citizens beyond when they're actually dealing with law enforcement in a negative fashion. So I'm always interested in hearing other ideas for, how you think the police could maybe interact and engage with the community, with your neighborhood. Are there events? Are there ways that they could show up in, we'll say a friendly fashion as opposed to a law enforcement only fashion? What are some ideas you have, and maybe how do our police officers get out there and build positive relations with the community? Not just, pulling someone over or arresting them, but, are there events in your community? Are there block parties? Are there, neighborhood things you think they can go to? What do you think we could do to get out into the community more and meet face to face and develop some real positive relationships between the citizens and the police department? Any ideas on that?
I think the police in Lewiston have done a good job with keeping communication with immigrant communities and have gone to a lot of events that they keep being invited to, even though I oppose it. But I recognize that, there's been a lot of intricacies in that and relationship building. And of course, there's been community crisis where there was like loss of life and things like that. And so police and community had to be, communication. What I do worry about is that those kinds of initiatives and having police is almost like coercion. Like we're under the pretense that it's inauthentic or could be unauthentic, disingenuine, when like poor people are being targeted or poor youth especially. So just to be mindful of that, because it could lead to like some serious issues, like police being present or in space or invited into space around the table where they're actually there for intel and not there for building community or relationship or responding to that. So I think that's one of my number one concerns. But I think the city of Lewiston as well and the police could do better at prioritizing survivors of violence. Restorative and transformative justice are great pieces around that, isn't within the scope of the Lewiston Police Department necessarily, but the way that they center and prioritize survivors and initiatives, because it would kind of throw a lot of the propaganda pushing, the classism, the racism to the wayside, and not really have conversations around community safety based around fear or hyperbole. We could actually have productive conversations where survivors with lived experiences could, like I said, stop the radicalized Robert Cards, stop the cyber stalkers and the harassers and many other people in community, and the violence, especially when that domestic violence involves gun or the use of gun.
All right, thank you. Katie.
So I personally feel that the police department has been doing a great job with it. We've done movies in the park. You see a lot of police officers there. The kids and adults are able to interact then with them. We've had some great block parties. Officers are there. They're able to interact with the youth then and adults also. We need to do more stuff like in the fall, in the winter. It's great we get out during the beautiful weather, but then we get closed in. Kids get cooped up. Kids then get restless. Adults get cooped up. They get restless with the kids being cooped up. Let's think of stuff that we can bring everybody together during those times of the months. We've done gun safety talks at the elementary schools. That was great. Being able to have more one-on-one conversations with adults where they can ask questions of officers. That night they brought so many different officers there, and a lot of families didn't know that, there were this type of officer or this type of officer or this type of officer. Some families were simply saying, I thought there was just a police officer. So it's nice to get to know the different ranks of police officers and what their jobs are in the department. Getting to break down the levels for the police officers and getting to know them personally, I think that's important for our community to be able to do that. Being able to maybe have them, as you said, more on a friendly level, sometimes seeing them not come all geared up. Sometimes that really scares the youth. If you see an officer coming at you and you're in full uniform, you got the vest on, you got the gun on, you got the taser on, some youth may feel that's very intimidating. Sometimes just wearing the blue pants, a shirt, and you got your little silver badge on your t-shirt. That and your dress downs may just be enough that they can have that one-on-one conversation, and you're still being respected as an officer of the law, but you're not as intimidating to that child because they're not seeing a side weapon on you. They're not seeing a taser on you. So they may feel more comfortable to come up and to have a conversation with you. And sometimes that's okay to do that. And then you have officers that can be there that are in full uniform because some kid might think that's the coolest thing, that you're in full uniform. So do both. But look at different types of situations that we can do to start getting the officers out in the community more and start doing more engagements with them.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
My name is Pauline Goodis. I live in Ward 6. One of the things, and I know that Deputy Administrator O'Malley and I have had this discussion a number of times, this city acts and performs and administers the city as its two cities. There's the downtown and there's the rest of us. Most police activities when they're doing special events are in the downtown. I live in an area where there's a lot of children. They would love to have a police car go by and the police officer get out and shoot a few hoops with them. Doesn't happen because if there's a police car in my neighborhood, everyone runs out of their house and says, what's happened? What's going on? They don't have that interaction as the downtown, and I understand. They're short-handed. I understand that. But it really needs to start taking a look at places like Mishu Heights, which is up Outer Main Street, all single-family homes, a lot of children out there. Out in Pleasant Valley, which is Outer Pleasant Street. Out off Grove Street, you have Mark Street, Janus Street. Off Old Green Road, you have School Street, the area that feeds into McMahon. There's never any activities out there for kids. Police don't show up because they're busy downtown. When you ask the question about, do people feel safe? A lot of people from the outside, and I think there's several people here in this room that live on the outskirts, their neighbors won't come into the downtown. I wanted to try the new restaurant, Blue Feather. We went Sunday morning. I want to be able to see what I'm stepping over. People in my neighborhood will not come downtown because they don't want to step over homeless. They don't want to step over needles. They don't want to deal with panhandlers. So when you say, do people feel safe? It's not an imagination. People who pay big property taxes on the outskirts of the city do not want to come into the city and work with businesses downtown, go out to eat. I was in law enforcement for 30 years. I never felt scared or afraid to go into 305 Bates Street, go on to Knox Street, go into Kennedy Park. I don't know if I would want to do that alone anymore. So there is a perception, but there's also the reality. I do not go to Community Credit Union on Pine Street anymore. I drive the extra 3 miles and put up with the construction on Main Street and Center Street to go to Community Credit Union in Auburn because I don't want to be harassed. I don't want people pounding on my window. I don't want to be stepping over needles while I'm trying to go in and utilize the bank. So let's be real. There is a concern about safety downtown. It's not imagination, and if people who live downtown aren't afraid, that's fine. but there's a lot of good people who used to come to activities in the downtown that don't come anymore. And if you're looking for a chief, I think you need to have someone who has leadership skills. I think you have to have someone with a backbone to tell the city council, back off. I'm doing my job. You may not like it, but it's my job. I know what I'm doing. No member of the city council, with rare exception, have law enforcement experience and can understand what needs to be done. You also have to have a chief who has the ability to communicate with our legislators that live in this city and say, hey, wait a minute, some of this legislation you're asking to pass, it's going to be a disaster for our city. You have to have someone who's strong and someone who will listen and someone who really cares about this city and wants to see this city continue to go forward. For the last 10 or 15 years, I've seen this city go backwards. We have to decide what is it we really want and how are we going to achieve it. And it's going to take guts, it's going to take courage, and it's going to take stamina and someone who really wants this city to succeed and not to continue the same old way, same old way. You cannot let needles keep being distributed and discarded on the streets of Lewiston. That is not going to help the economic development. And a strong police department, a strong chief will help Lewiston achieve economic development. If not, we're going to continue to go backwards. And for someone who's lived and worked in this community most of my life, I find it really sad and I find it disappointing that I may decide that this city isn't worth saving, it's not worth staying here, and I may have to move because I don't like where this city is going. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I just have a quick question, if you might. So the neighbors that you're talking about that are fearful of coming into downtown, and I've talked to these same folks, so I've experienced the same thing. What do you think it's going to take to get a second look from some of these people, to re-engage them with our downtown, for them to feel safe coming here and going to the Blue Feather or wherever it is? What do you think is what's it going to take to get that second look from some of these people? I mean, I've heard lots of stories myself, but I'm interested in your opinion. What's it going to take?
There's going to have to be, one, open and honest communication with the city. There has to be transparency. If there's a shooting on Bartlett Street, why are we having to wait to hear about it 3 days down the road from the police department? You're hearing about it on social media. As much as I say I don't want Lewiston to be another Portland, Portland at least has the courage and the transparency to say, we had a shooting last night down at Kennedy Park or in one of the projects in Portland. Let's be honest and upfront. This happened. This afternoon, or excuse me, I think it was this morning, there was an overdose on the entrance to Sunnyside Park. My husband and I used to walk there all the time. There's been a shooting over there. There's needles over there. Public Works does the best they can. What you'd have to do, people would have to be able to see that when they get out of their car, they're not harassed when they try to go into the bank. They'd want to be able to come to City Hall in the morning to pay their taxes, register their car, and not find people sleeping on the front bench or set up in a tent across in Kennedy Park. Perception says a lot, and I think you really need to do, the city really needs to do a better job at being honest and saying, this is the way it is, we're going to get better. Don't hide the problems, don't lie about it, and most of all, don't try to say it didn't happen. If my impression, and I may be wrong, is if there is a reported shooting, guns fired, if the police do not find a victim, or don't find shell casings, or don't find a bullet hole in a building, it didn't happen. Now, come on. We know that's not true. Then isn't necessarily going to be evidence of a shooting just because you can't find something. So I think that's what you need to do. I think you need to be honest, open, transparent. Tell the people, we don't need the details of who it was. We need the details of this happened. And if you're honest, I think people will take you at your word, rather than feeling that we're being lied to. Several people have mentioned that. It's going to be a hard job. I don't envy the next chief. Coming in shorthanded, that doesn't help. But the perception of people outside is it's not safe to come downtown. And if I have an incident that happened, I brought it up to City Administrator O'Malley. It's been 3 years. We had an incident in my neighborhood, and I called, and I got a phone call from the police officer that, oh, don't worry about it, I know who that is. I inquired, who was it? And I was told it was none of my business. I asked for the shift supervisor to call me back. It'll be 3 years, December 23rd, and I haven't got a call back yet. Police do not respond to the outside for small incidents, or it takes a lot of time. And when they do get to your house, and granted, I know, or at least I used to know most of the officers, they would say, well, we were busy downtown. What does that tell me? What does that tell my neighbors? What does it tell the people out on Pine Woods Road, out on Michoud Avenue, out on School Street? It says we're not important because we're not downtown. And that's a perception that people don't want to hear. I mean, I got my tax bill yesterday, as did a lot of other people. A lot of people aren't happy with their tax bills. And they're going to start wanting to have services out there. And it's too bad because we really have a great police department. They have a great new facility. There's a lot of good people that work there. Let's use them. Let's use their talents. And let's not make the police department a political arm of the mayor and the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Tom.
Tom Peters, been in Lewiston for 75 years, and I've had the honor of sitting up there as the president of the city council, and have been a chairman of 3 different boards for the city. I'm a lot more optimistic about Lewiston. I think that over the years we've squandered and lost great opportunities. I look at the river frontage that could be developed. You talk about the San Antonio river frontage. We could make this place so much better than that. We have so many opportunities here that you aren't going to fix overnight. I know you've got to build a coalition. You're new, you're looking and doing the right kinds of things, Brian, to bring our city forward. We're not going to fix it with one act, obviously. And I think you have a great opportunity in the picking of a new chief. You have a fabulous police department. You have a fabulous building that they're in now. I toured it this morning. It's incredible. I deal a lot with the police department and the police officers as a justice, signing search warrants and arrest warrants and so forth. They're top-notch people. They really are. What you, I think, need to consider most is not the little things that are going on here and there, and although those are important, but you've got to look at a bigger picture of how do you, as the city administrator, select a team that's going to represent the city that can move this city forward. We really need to take the opportunity to make Lewiston great. Lewiston's police department, with the new chief and the right person, somebody who comes in with no assumptions, no history with maybe the department, maybe somebody outside of the department. I mean, that's obviously your call, but my feeling is someone that comes in that has goals and aspirations that matches what you want to do, Brian, as a city administrator, and gets a chance to move forward with this good team of people that you have. That's what I'd like to see you do. I'd like to see you take the opportunity to make the Lewiston Police Department the #1 police department in the state of Maine. I'm telling you as an attorney, although I'm retired, as somebody who's dealt with the police, that this police department can easily be the #1 department in the state of Maine. It can. It has that potential. This city has the potential to attract people, to be a destination location, and we've not done it. We need to stop sitting on our hands, move forward, and do things that will attract people, economy, businesses, and the like. You're going to need to increase the police numbers of law enforcement officers. The presence of police helps to deter crime. They need to be seen. We used to try bicycle police. We've done all sorts of things, and some have worked and some haven't. But I think the new chief should work with you and the city council to figure out how are we going to better the department, because if you have police presence that is throughout the city, not just downtown, or as Pauline said, let's see them outside too. I think that you're going to find that just like Washington, D.C., even though people may not agree with the process that the president is using, but all of a sudden, crime has dropped. Deaths have dropped. Murders have dropped. And I think that as much as people like or don't like the person, it's working. And I think that we have to take some drastic steps to make things better here. But you have a great opportunity, Brian. You are new, and you're having a chance to hire a new chief. You gotta maybe not listen to all of us, but sit back, have a glass of wine, and think about it, and say, what?
I don't
what
drink, but
that's fine. Have a glass of water and just decide what it is that you need to see happen in this city. Hopefully we don't drink. Do we push you to drinking, though? Thank you, Brian.
thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Hi, Julia Harper, Ward 4. I just wanted to add that I don't want to, I think people's safety concerns around the unhoused community and, things that they see, needles, whatever, that's real. And at the same time, those individuals, I want to enhance again that idea that these are systemic problems. We have homelessness and poverty and drug use are systemic issues. And so the police they're part of a solution, but they are not the whole solution. So just kind of moving those people along or putting them in jail is not going to solve the issue in Lewiston. We have a high poverty rate here. And so this is as much to the rest of the community as it is to the administrator, is that we have folks in our community who are trying to create a low barrier 24-hour homeless shelter. And is their job really hard and really challenging? Of course. But let's support them. Let's work together. Let's figure out ways that the whole community can be involved in addressing our issues with, I think, centering care. Let's care for each other. And let's work together. So yes, this is, I just wanted to kind of highlight that, how important it is not to just think of the downtown issues that we might have as just solely a police issue, because it's really not. It's going to involve all of us. Thank you.
Great point. Thank you.
I will make this really short.
Okay.
I think that everybody knows funding is being cut for very important programs because of our current president. If we don't create more nonprofits in Maine, we're going downhill. I think there'd be a lot of volunteers if there was actually nonprofits to volunteer for. Caden's Kitchen, that's a success story. And also, because there is a problem with domestic violence and with children being taken from their parents, sometimes without real good reason. I mean, Maine is #1 apparently in this country for child abuse and neglect. And I think a lot of it is because parents who really care about their children are alienated by the custodial parent. Sometimes grandparents are alienated too, like I've been, and charged with stalking. So anyway, also a facility where people who are violating protection orders for whatever reason can be housed instead of jail and be helped, but also a secure place where they're not going to be just released back into society. Sort of like an in-between, not jail, but not freedom. I think that would go a long way to addressing some of the problems we have with the domestic violence situations. A lot of people are, there's domestic violence orders that are like no contact orders, but a lot of times the people that are the victims are breaking those orders because they don't want to be completely cut off from the other person. But supervised phone calls or something, whereas they could work out their problems, something like that. Just domestic violence in the state is a big problem, and it's not being solved, obviously, by the ways that we're working right now.
Thank you, appreciate it. So we are about at time, but I know a few new people walked in, so if anyone has any general comments, this is kind of your last chance. General comments? Okay. If not, I want to sincerely thank you for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. Your input is really important in this process. From the moment I got here, I've been talking about transparency and public engagement. This is another step in that effort, so we really appreciate you being here. The offer is open. If you want to come and talk to me individually anytime, we'll find a time to do that. Please don't hesitate. Members of the media, thank you for being here. We appreciate the coverage. So again, this is going to be advertised through the end of next week. We hope to do some interviews by mid-September, and hopefully by the beginning of October, have a name released. But we are absolutely committed to finding the very best person to carry this mission forward for Lewiston. This is an incredibly important position. We have real opportunity and real challenges here, and we need the right person to help us meet those challenges. So again, thank you for being here. Really appreciate the input. The offer's open anytime. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.